The following is a GoPowercat.com production.
Big 12 has a couple of new basketball coaches. Oklahoma State has one, Steve Lutz. Plays a really interesting up-tempo style. I think Oklahoma State fans are going to like that. We're going to talk that and more today. Today is all about Oklahoma State. This is the Big 12 Insiders.
Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show, presented by Synergy Financial Partners. Now let's go to booming North Texas, home of Studio 73. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
All right, everybody. This is Big 12 Insiders. This is Brien Hanley. Today, we got McLain Baxley, who covers Oklahoma State for 24/7. McLain, how are you doing today?
Doing good, staying busy.
I understand. So, as always, everybody, thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate it. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Remember, over on the new Big 12 channel on YouTube, we appreciate all that. So let's just get into this, McLain, real quick. New basketball coach coming in from Western Kentucky, Steve Lutz, plays a really interesting style, a style that I like. I think I'm familiar with him a little bit just because I have some friends that went to Western Kentucky. I'm from not too far from there originally, so I follow them a little bit. How are the fans feeling about the hire?
I think excited is the consensus motion towards it. I think obviously after 7 years with Boynton and letting him kind of marinate and do what he did, and it wasn't where they wanted it to be. So moving on, I think they would have been satisfied with just about anybody that came in. But especially with Lutz, he's kind of in the upper threshold of their wants. They've kind of missed on a couple other coaches that they were kind of more excited about and maybe been bigger names and more flashy hires. But I think Steve Lutz is a guy who has been proven, at Purdue and at Creighton and now, Western Kentucky this year, and 3 for 3 and taking teams to the NCAA tournament as a head coach. And so he's had success on the court. He's had success, with the transfer portal, which is something that Boynton wasn't as great about in the last few years, and playing a lot of young guys. So I think they're overall excited. Obviously, later today we'll meet him for the first time. They're having a press conference at Gallagher Ibra at 3:30 today, and so that'll be the first time that fans really get to hear from him, and we as media members will get to hear from him, and so just kind of check out what he's about. But I think overall positive with the hire of Steve Lutz.
Absolutely. So my one question, and obviously, the press conference is coming later today, so we'll find out a little bit more. But as of right now, in this crazy world of college athletics that we live in, the first thing we got to talk about is transfer portal, guys staying, going. What are the numbers looking like so far at Oklahoma State with all of that?
So they've had several guys enter. Brandon Garrison was the first guy to lead the charge. He was a freshman, all-American coming into college, and had a really good year as a freshman. Played against a very veteran league in the Big 12. He's a center. 6'9", 6'10". Had a really good season. Entered the transfer portal. Then the next day, Javon Small, a transfer from East Carolina, was starting point guard for Oklahoma State this season. He was in the portal, and then since then they've had Eric Daly Jr. and Keon Williams. All 4 of those guys started at some point this season. All 4 of those played a big role, especially in the second half and really in Big 12 play. 2 freshmen, 2 older guys. They're all in the portal. Like I said, we'll learn today if they're still in town, if they're still, if they're listening to Lutz, seeing what he's going to sell. I think it's kind of mixed. Based off those 4 guys, and there could be more, after they meet the coach and kind of test the waters and see if there's anything out there, whether that's by NIL or playing time or, it's a better school for better fit for them. But I think as of right now, it's kind of unknown about, who's staying, who's going. Nobody's committed yet. Nobody's taken tours yet. I think Keon Williams is probably the most likely to leave just because he had that side of Boynton. He had that, and I think he could excel elsewhere, maybe not in Lutz's system. I think Eric Daly is another guy that I think is definitely, on the outside looking in. He was very close to Boynton. Boynton and him knew each other since when he was a kid, and so I think that was only really tied to Oklahoma State. And so I think finding, a guy for a All-American guy that's played for Team USA, youth teams and stuff. He's a guy that a lot of talent. I think he can find that elsewhere, and whether that's Michigan or whether that's closer to home in Florida is yet to be seen, but it's kind of up in the air for a lot of these guys.
Gotcha. Taking a step back and maybe looking backward a little bit, and I don't like to do that often, but what went wrong with Mike Boynton? What was the major issue where it just did not work?
Winning games is obviously the easiest answer. You know, he was able to get talent. You know, he was a good recruiter, is a good recruiter. You know, he was able to get guys from high school, had a couple of transfer hits, and was able to get guys to Stillwater. But then once they're here, you know, you're playing the toughest conference in college basketball. You're playing, you know, Kansas, Baylor, Texas Tech, Texas. I mean, you're playing these really high caliber teams. And if you're not winning above 500 of those games, you're not making the NCAA tournament. So only one tournament appearance. Obviously, they did have the NCAA suspensions and NCAA sanctions, but even in those years, I'm not sure if this would have been a tournament team. So only having one NCAA tournament appearance, only having one really good team that was competitive, and you know you thought there was a chance on most nights.
Right.
Year, I think was a big factor, and just not being able to develop guys and keep guys here and playing at the level that it takes to win the Big 12. And you're not expected to, I don't think he was ever expected to win the conference every year or, you know, compete with Kansas or Baylor to win the conference. But I think being a consistent threat to make the tournament was the expectation, and by fans and by administration and by players, and to only have one trip to the NCAA tournament with, you know, a lottery pick getting you there in Cade Cunningham. That's the only sign you have. So I think it was just time to move on and you know, just move on. And that's really what led to the downfall of you know, Mike Boynton.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. I mean, I thought they, like you said, they brought in good talent. They had guys that came in, but for some reason, whatever the case may be, they just didn't win a lot of games. Now, I'm thinking, look, Oklahoma State's a pretty proud fan base, pretty knowledgeable fan base as well. You know, I shouldn't say I've followed them, but I've been around it just because I've been around the Big 12 for over 25 years now. And like I said, Oklahoma State, very intelligent fan base that gets behind their teams, and people stop showing up to the basketball arena. I got to believe it's because, look, if you're not putting a good product out there that can go and win games, there's no reason for me to go waste my hard-earned money. Would that be the case?
Yeah. I mean, this season, you know, this is my first year covering the team, but I think even the OU game, you know, Bedlam at home and Oklahoma State come in with two. They'd won 2 games, and OU was looking. They'd lost a couple games, so it was a game that I think a lot of fans expected to win. You know, the last Bedlam game as conference rivals, and it still wasn't fully sold out. You know, I mean, It was a good crowd, but that was the only time it even got impressive. You know, Kansas came, Baylor came. Those were decent crowds, but still to the level of where Oklahoma State fans used to be. You know, as I hear and how they were, you know, in decades past. Like you said, you know, this is a team that was a consistent NCAA tournament team. They were in the Final Four 20 years ago, you know, under Sutton, and that's kind of the expectation, is to compete and have a product out there that you know you expect to. You want to go to the stadium, you want to go to the arena, thinking your team has a shot. And I'm not sure this season, whether home or away, there were more than 2 or 3 Big 12 games that Oklahoma State fans went into that game thinking the Cowboys would win. I think you know, West Virginia, when they were here, was a game that you'd like to have won. I think that Oklahoma game, like we talked about, was a game that you think that you could stand a chance, and maybe 1 or 2 others on the road, or even ones at home. But this was just not a team that you felt confident in to spend your money, spend, you know, 2.5, 3 hours of your time, you know, cheering and rooting for, knowing the outcome was going to not go your way.
Yeah, it makes it difficult. Looking from the outside looking in, any signees that are sticking around so far at Oklahoma State?
So the only signee that they had for this class, Jeremiah Johnson, a point guard, is from Oklahoma, currently plays or just finished up his high school season in Arizona for a travel league team, and very talented kid, 3 or 4 star kid, and I reached out to him last week when Lutz was kind of the candidate, and he said he was still in, and obviously, now that he is the head coach, I haven't heard if he's still on board right now, but as of last week, he is still on board to come into Stillwater this summer to join this team. And then there's another guy, Charlton Young. He's a 2025 commit. Hasn't signed, obviously, but he's a guy that commit. I'm sure Lutz has reached out and kind of keeping those guys on board, but not a ton to work with. But you want to have a foundation, and that's what I imagine Lutz has been doing, yesterday and today, especially.
Right. And like I said, and we know that the press conference is coming up a little later, so I'm sure there'll be a ton of questions on how he's going to fill out his roster. But on our side of it, just, as fans on the outside kind of looking in, clearly he's going to have to get in the transfer portal to be able to do that. What does Oklahoma State's NIL situation look like? Because as we know, a lot of that kind of depends, on what transfers, how many, whatever, how you get them, that sort of stuff. Whether we agree with it or not, that's just a reality. What does Oklahoma State's NIL situation look like at this point?
Yeah, so one of the last press conferences that Mike Boynton had was he went on that rant just talking about how it's not competitive. It's not where it needs to be to compete in the Big 12 and to compete with other Power 5, Power 6 schools. It's towards the bottom, and I'm not sure how much that has changed in the last month since he went on that rant and kind of just voiced his understanding and voiced his opinion. I'd assume it's gone up much, but I mean they're not going to be able to compete with the Louisvilles. They're not going to be able to compete with the Oklahomas and Texases, which they won't really have to anymore, I guess, with leaving SEC as they lead for the SEC. But I mean it's moderate, and they also just had to both pay for a buyout for Boynton, and they had to pay for new coach's salary and new coach's contract and assistants and deal with all that. And so I'm not sure they're the most attractive NIL wise, but Steve Lutz has that's been his thing at both Texas A&M, Corpus Christi, and then last year at Western Kentucky, really rebuilding from close to nothing. He was able to bring in guys from mid majors, bringing in guys from Power 5 schools, and then junior college levels to really fill out those rosters and have success. Obviously, playing in Conference USA or playing in the Southland Conference is different than playing in the Big 12. But to be able to have that, translate that from those smaller schools into the bigger school with a bigger campus, you got better facilities than you do at Western Kentucky. So you got better resources for off field and post basketball careers and stuff. So being able to sell that, I think, is going to be something that Lutz is going to be able to use to his advantage over these next few weeks.
Absolutely. We're going to park a quick break here. On the other side of this, we're going to get into the Cowboys football season. Take a look at, what spring ball, what the outlook for the season looks like. We'll take a deep dive into Oklahoma State football once we have a word from our partners at Synergy Financial Partners.
At Synergy Financial Partners, the mission is to change the way Americans plan for their financial future. Synergy doesn't just offer you a financial plan. At Synergy, the goal is to help you find your best financial future. Learn more at synergyfinancial.com.
Welcome back to the show. Let's head back to the studio.
All right, welcome back to Big 12 Insiders. Again, this is Brien Hanley with McLain Baxley. So, McLain, let's talk a little football. Let's kind of flip it up here. 18 starters back, from a team that played in the Big 12 championship game. To a lot of people's surprise, especially the way that the season got started, but it got going. To me, it's just a testament to how good of a coach that Mike Gundy actually is, And basically, from what I remember and what happened, struggled, didn't necessarily have the quarterback name. We're playing 3 quarterbacks. Next thing you know, they have a bye week, and then they beat Kansas State at home and kind of controlled that football game from start to finish, and then away they went on their season. I just think sometimes it just takes that. Takes a little bit to figure out exactly what you want to do, what's going on. Mike Gundy's an outstanding coach, and that's just what it looked like. With 18 starters coming back, look, their schedule obviously is going to be different, but just looking at it, I got to believe that fans, the team, the coaches, everybody is expecting some big things coming up next year.
Absolutely. I was talking with some of the guys, some people in the program the other day and at practice, and they said last year was Mike Gundy's best coaching job. Like you said, start with that 2-2 start, getting blown out at home by South Alabama, going to Iowa State and having a pretty bad game in Al Moment's first, full game. And then having that bye week where they changed the offense to go through Ollie Gordon. They changed the defense a little bit, kind of hunkered down on what they wanted to do and who they wanted to do those roles. And then you said come out, they won, 4 or 5 straight games against ranked opponents, Kansas State, Kansas, OU. And just kind of go through. And like you said, they end the season in, playing in Arlington against the playoff team in Texas. And then they beat Texas A&M in the Texas Bowl to get a 10th win of the season. And they return all those guys back. I mean, I think they're definitely the early favorites. And I'm not sure, that I know, national medias and national people are going to be high on Arizona, high on Utah, but Kansas State, but Oklahoma State, bringing all this talent back. There's definitely a vibe. Talking with players, talking with Gundy, talking with other media people. I mean, it's the expectation right now on this first week of April is we're going to be winning. We're going to not only playing for Big 12 championship, but winning a Big 12 championship and playing in the playoff this season. That's really the mindset. That's the vibe we get around the program. With different players, whether they're quarterbacks, offense, defense. I mean, that's definitely the vibe around the program right now. Is we're playing to win a Big 12 championship and then compete in the college football playoff.
Gotcha. And I mean, you've got starters coming back. Alec Bowman at quarterback, Ollie Gordon, coming back at running back. Are there any position battles that are going on? Like I said, with 18 starters coming back, I mean, that's a lot. Are there any position battles that are technically up for grabs? Look, there's always going to be competition when you're talking football or anything competitive at this point in time, obviously. But are we looking at anything, or is it more, we're trying to develop guys that we've brought in. We're trying to get more depth on the roster. Is that kind of what they're doing this spring, trying to build the depth versus position battles?
I think so. I think, this time a year ago, position battles were the thing. Who's going to be quarterback? Who's going to be running back?
Right.
Who's replacing guys on defensive line? This year, you're really building that depth. You're bringing in these, freshmen, sophomore that really, sat on the bench last year and kind of, learned from those older guys. They're now, second, third string guys at different positions at, receiver, at offensive line, defensive line, linebacker. You're getting these younger guys to try and get more reps, whether that's in practice or maybe even games, to give the other guys a rest. I mean, they're really building their depth so that next year they're not totally at ground zero when all these 5th, 6th, 7th year seniors probably leave. I mean,
right.
These guys will still have eligibility after 2024, but I mean, that's kind of the mind. That's what it seems like right now. And there's not really too many. You're pretty established at the offensive line who are all 5th, 6th, 7th year guys. Quarterback, who's going to be quarterback. Ollie Gordon's going to be the starting running back. Receiver, you're very veteran. Same on the defensive side, your backfield and your linebacker core are set. I mean, it's a pretty set roster. I think kind of takes away the fun of projecting depth chart, projecting starting lineups from our side, but from their side, it feels very comfortable. They feel like they're really being able to take steps forward, learning the offense, learning the defense, and getting better in plays and formations instead of having to deal about who's going to be in those roles.
Gotcha. Well, I took a look at the schedule. I was just looking at it a few minutes ago. They play Arkansas in the non-conference. I don't know how good Arkansas is going to be. But as far as conference is concerned, we're going to learn a lot about Oklahoma State right off the bat. Utah and Kansas State. Utah's at home. Kansas State's on the road. I can imagine that Oklahoma State fans are thinking, man, the Big 12 didn't do us any favors with the schedule, this early in the season. Because again, as you mentioned, both of those teams are going to bring back a lot, going to be really good football teams. But Oklahoma State will as well. But just looking at it, it's like, okay, well, we're going to learn a lot early on in this season.
Yeah, I mean, last year they were definitely rewarded. They had Kansas State at home, Kansas at home, OU at home. This year it's kind of the opposite. They're going to Kansas State. They have several road games as you go down. But yeah, I mean, that they can make it through this first 6-game stretch.
Right.
South Dakota State is not going to be easy. Arkansas, they're SEC talent. They might not be the Alabamas or the Georgias of the SEC, but they're going to bring guys into Stillwater. And then Utah and Kansas State is a hell of a back-to-back. One of those is at home, one of those is on the road. I mean, they're definitely going to go to Manhattan. Kansas State knows what happened last year. I mean, if Kansas State wins that game on a Friday night, it sets a trajectory for both teams totally different last year.
Yep.
The last time that Oklahoma State was in Manhattan, it was horrible for the Cowboys.
Yeah.
I mean, they 40-point shutout. I mean, so they'll remember that, and that's going to be a huge game. I mean, I think if Oklahoma State can go 2-0 against those games, it should be pretty smooth sailing. But then you get a UCF or a West Virginia kind of sneak up on you like we saw last year. But I mean, that's going to be huge. We'll know about this team, what their postseason aspirations look like, what their postseason capabilities look like, before October comes, which is interesting and I guess, scary if you're an Oklahoma State fan, playing the two best teams on your roster in those first 5 games. But get it out of the way now, and then you can kind of chill so that you're rested, ideally, when, Big 12 championship comes, when, postseason's rolling around.
Right. So one last thing before I get you out of here, everybody, this big date is coming up April 15th. It's kind of been the rumor going around about college football, transfer portals going to open back up. The rumor has been that teams are going to get rated. They know they're going to get rated. They're doing some rating of their own. First off, with that being, is Oklahoma State, I should say, has there been any conversations or any scuttlebutt / rumors about guys possibly leaving?
Yeah, so I think we talked with Mike Gundy on Tuesday, and he was asked about the stability and bringing guys in, and the fear of guys leaving, and he was pretty adamant that their roster's pretty set right now. They feel good about positions. They feel like the guys they have here are happy and content, whether they're starters or whether they're in line if there's an injury or getting ready for next season. I think the most intriguing of that is a quarterback. They've got Zane Flores, a former 4-star quarterback, and Garrett Rangel, who played a little bit the past 2 years. Both those guys are presumed to be not starting this year. Alan Bowman, he's the 7th year. I think he has the reins unless something goes horribly wrong. But for both those guys to stick around, and again, things could change in 2 weeks, and they could learn to hate Stillwater. But as of right now, they're both expected to stay through the 2024 season. So because they know that next season, when Bowman is out of eligibility finally and he moves on post Oklahoma State, they're going to be competing for the starting quarterback position. So I think that just shows where this program is. This is a program that they, like I said, they want to win a championship. They want to be competing at the highest level, and they have an opportunity to do that, whether they're starting now or continue to grow for 2025 and beyond.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I mean, hopefully, McLain, hopefully that all these rumors that we keep hearing about are literally just rumors, because a lot of people, because here's what I think. And I talked to Mike Casaza yesterday from West Virginia, and he was talking about how they strategically moved their spring practice back to coincide with that date, that they're literally right in the middle of spring practice during that. And if somebody's leaving during that time, it's like, okay, well, fine. I'm not sure another coach would want somebody that say you're in the middle of practice and you're leaving. I mean, that would be a horrible time to jump in the portal. If this April 15th date actually hits and all these people leave and teams are getting rated, I believe, and I'm just asking you, I think that teams will just start saying, you know what, we're going to take that approach and we're just going to move our spring practice back or however we need to do it. So this date happens right in the middle of spring practice. I think people will take that approach because they're not going to hey, we spent all this time. Not only we invested another semester in you just for you to leave. I don't think teams are going to like that so much.
No, I mean, I have no inside information if that's what Oklahoma State did, but I mean, this is only their second week of practice. And like you said, they're probably towards the front half of the middle of the section. They're not due to end spring practice till the end of April. I mean,
there you go.
They may have done that strategically. Maybe Gundy knew that. I think he gets kind of crapped on by players about not being understanding with the portal and how things work. But he did that. Kudos to him. I mean, but like we said, I think as we go, maybe next year, maybe 2 years from now, I'm not sure if this April 15th, this spring transfer portal window will be as important as that December one in the mid-year is as it has been.
Right. No, I totally understand, man. So I want to thank you for taking the time to join us today. We're going to take one quick break and we'll end the show, but appreciate you giving us time to talk a little Oklahoma State athletics today.
Sounds good. Appreciate it.
We will be back in a moment once we have one word from our sponsor, Synergy Financial Partners.
At Synergy Financial Partners, the vision is to build the world's largest consumer financial education and empowerment company. Synergy doesn't just offer you a financial plan. At Synergy, the goal is to help you find your best financial future. Learn more at synergyfinancial.com.
Welcome back to the show. Let's head back to the studio.
All right, welcome back to Big 12 Insiders. Again, this is your man, Brien Hanley. Look, Oklahoma State, like I mentioned earlier, it's a proud school, with some proud tradition in basketball and in football. Getting Steve Lutz in, I think the fans are going to love his style. Up and down, shoot a lot of threes, put a lot of pressure on the defense. I think that's just the kind of breath of fresh air that Oklahoma State needs. Their fans are great fans. They want to come out and support, but they're just like anybody else. If you see the product and it's not very good, why am I going to go and spend my hard-earned money to go do that? I 100% wholeheartedly agree. A change was unfortunately needed. They got it. I think they're going to be good. And with Lutz's success of turning around programs pretty quickly, I think Oklahoma State's going to be back in the mix quicker than what people think. On the football side, look, Mike Gundy, you can say whatever you want about him, but as long as you say that he's an outstanding football coach, then as long as you're throwing that in there, then you're saying something right, because the man is an outstanding football coach. And to me, that's kind of what matters. He's doing it his way. It's successful. I think he's going to be a lifer. Obviously, he had all this stuff going about a few years back, him leaving. He's not leaving. He's there. They're good. They're competitive. 18 starters back from a team that, look, quite frankly, they overachieved last year because of some of the things that Coach Gundy did for them. But now they're invested. Now they're a veteran team with some experience of having a lot of success. I think that works wonders for them going into this season. I also think Oklahoma State can be one of the teams that kind of takes the mantle of the conference. There's a few of them. I mean, there's not going to be any blue bloods in the conference, but I think Oklahoma State is one of those schools that can take the mantle, at least on the football side, and say, you know what, here we are. We're good. We have to be respected. I think they're in a great position to be able to do that. So thank you guys again for joining Big 12 Insiders. I appreciate all the support. Again, like, follow, subscribe, notification bell, all that good stuff to help us grow. Please go over to @the Big 12 Insiders on YouTube, or on 24/7 on YouTube. Please go subscribe. We're over 500. We got to get to 1,000 before the season starts so we can move all the stuff over there. We appreciate it. Thank you, guys. We will be back tomorrow to do this better.
This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production. Please support this show by subscribing to this YouTube channel or follow us on your favorite podcast platform.